Alright, we're finally here. The Bakadron system.
Kind of out of the way, aren't we, Mr. Code?
Perhaps, but there is a greater chance we could locate some rare and valuable materials, possibly even some Lumantium ore.
Are the ship's Lumantia power cells running low?
They'll power the ship for a while, but if we can find a good load, we got ourselves a steady supply for the engine cores. And even some leftover for trading.
Sounds good. You want to deploy the drones?
Later, but first, Commodester, scan the planet and let us know what you find.
Beginning global scan now.
Alright, well, while that's going on, let's go kill some time by looking at the Fiendship is Magic Arc, starting with King Sombra. So we start off the adventure with Twilight and Cadence returning to Sombra's lair beneath the castle to investigate any relics he left behind. It's cool we get to see Twilight using dark magic again, which is a concept I hope they play more with in the future. Like if Twilight was forced to use dark magic in certain situations, but slowly over time becomes more corrupt, and eventually turns into an abomination like Sombra, that would be awesome! Anyway, they find Sombra's journal and we follow the cute and adorable Colt during his times in the Crystal Empire, and there are plenty of intriguing elements giving this soon-to-be tyrant a rather tragic backstory. You have this young Colt who was found in the waste with no knowledge of how he got there or even his own name, and to see this relatively nice kid turn into this shadowy demon, you really feel sympathy for the trials and tribulations he goes through. Throughout the first half of the comic, we see Sombra dealing with the difficulties of being a social pariah, like the Crystal Pony foals mocking him for not being crystal, and for him generally being socially awkward. Though we do meet his one beacon of light, Radiant Hope, and this is where the comic really shines. We get to see this cute friendship build between him and this filly who reminds me a lot of Ellie from Up, with her quirky personality traits, constantly living in a world of fantasy and adventure, making their own weird language, and even getting him on the weirdness as well. And it's such an awesome, realistic portrayal of children, and it's just so much fun watching these two interesting odd ponies bond, and finally Sombra's found his source of happiness in life. And it's really one of the best parts of this whole comic. His happiness is unfortunately short-lived, however, with a crystal fair and premonition he receives from the Crystal Heart that he is predestined to become an evil conqueror. Despite the fact he's a nice kid, he's already damned to become a monster with his path already being dictated, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. We've seen similar concepts of predestiny before, like with Troubleshoe's Cutie Mark, where his talent was essentially chosen for him instead of doing what he wanted. So what exactly is it in the world of Equestria that determines one's fate? Is there just a higher plane of gods to do checks and balances of good and evil, and some are just chosen to an awful fate? Or is it simply that life sometimes has a sick sense of humor? More pressing is every Crystal Fair he succumbs to an illness that both physically and psychologically tortures him. Jeez, the poor guy just can't get a break. Let's take a look at Radiant's Cutie Mark. This is the medical symbol, also known as the symbol of Caduceus. In Greek mythology, this was given to Hermes by Apollo, the god of war, who is also the god of healing and medicine, and on it are two intertwined snakes that represent harmony. Follow me here. The Greeks regarded snakes as very sacred, used in healing rituals, and skin shedding is actually a symbol of rebirth and renewal. Notice the familiarity? Sombra and Radiant together represent a harmonious balance, and without her, the shadowy evil within him would have taken over, as we see him almost completely shed his outer layer. Then he gets the devastating news that she'll be going away to Canterlot's magic school, and now he knows he's losing the one thing that literally keeps him together. Running into the waste, he comes across a red crystal formation that is apparently Sombra's mother. Admittedly, this is probably the weakest part of the comic because it leaves you with more questions than answers. I do think it is rather interesting that there is an entire race of shadow ponies called Umbrum, though unfortunately we don't get to see them. Though the more pressing question is, why exactly is the mother a crystal manifestation, when not only are the crystal ponies their primary enemy, but the fact that we find out that the Crystal Heart is actually the thing that's been slowly killing Sombra all these years, acting as a barrier from these evil Umbrum. Also, apparently he was like a sleeper agent to destroy the heart, and she has since locked away his power until now. 1. Why lock away his power? 2. They've had an army literally waiting to storm this Crystal Empire, waiting for him to destroy or take this heart, ever since he was a cult? These Umbrum are a very patient race to wait for years to attack the Empire. Admittedly, this part is pretty artificial, trying to establish all this weird backstory in a short amount of time, and some things just not making a lot of sense, again, with the locked away power and sending Sombra out as a child to the Empire, rather than sending him out as an agent when he's an adult, when he can understand and comprehend his power. Not only that, but apparently the next Crystal Fair and the Heart's magic will kill him. Kind of damage to your whole domination plans when your one and only guy to bring down the Empire could die. You couldn't send a message warning him at any time? No? Yeah, it is kind of an artificial way to force a climax, but it's not story breaking. I do like the internal conflict Sombra goes through in losing his one and only friend and stealing the heart versus losing his life. I mean, you really can't blame the guy for going through with the act. Or he's performing this obviously evil act, but you sympathize with him because, you know, he's gonna die. The final confrontation under the castle throws in some interesting twists, like with Princess Amori revealing she knew his origin and knew the heart was slowly killing Sombra the entire time.
Basil, it is true, isn't it? And you knew. You and the whole damn Jedi Council, you knew the whole time.
Carth is not what you think. We had no other choice. Please, you don't understand.
As for his heel turn to the now evil agent of Shadow, there is actual justification for it. All that fear and anger Sombra had when he was a kid, combined with his summoned awakened power, manifested into this creature of fear, becoming obsessed with lust for power, I buy it. And again, the princess keeping his past from him and letting him slowly be tortured all these years. And even if she had told him about his origin, the Crystal Heart event, as we've already seen, spreads out to all Equestria, so he would have been killed regardless, even if he was sent away from the city. So this is actually a rather dark element that she would just let him die and just hoof wave it away. Wow. And then he outright stones and murders her. That was intense. Radiant and Sombra have their final confrontation, and the tragedy of this backstory really hits its peak, where friendships of old literally shatter as her heart breaks seeing her one and only friend become this monster.
You're a good person. Don't do this. Come away with me. Leave everything else behind while we still can.
We don't have to run away anymore. Make things the way we want them to be.
I don't believe what I'm hearing. You're breaking my heart.
And thus we end with his conquest of the Crystal Empires and setting up the Siege of the Crystal Empire arc as well. For the first entry in the Fiendship series, this is a great story. It gave us a rather unique look at Sombra's backstory, giving the future villain a tragic sympathetic background, some great artwork and expressions, some great character development for Sombra, cool world building with the Umbrum and expanding upon the Crystal Empire's lore, and some nice comedic and cute elements as well. Yeah, there are some contrived elements, but it really didn't break me out of the reverie of the story. Overall, this is a great comic, and we're going to be checking out the other villain origins as well. That's it for today, guys. MC out.